All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are going to react to a video about Grant Hill. I've been talking about it for a while. We did Tracy McGrady, we did Penny Hardaway, and to complete the trio, I felt it was important to cover Grant Hill because these are three players who had the potential of being some of the greatest of all time, but due to injury, their story went differently. So yeah, we're gonna react to this video. This is from Forgotten Player Profiles. It's called Grant Hill, the Detroit Pistons superstar, was the first LeBron James. I'm gonna link this video in the description down below, as always, if you want to watch it without my commentary. I've seen a couple of videos from Forgotten Player Profiles. It's been a while, but I really do enjoy it because he goes in deep and covers the entire career of a player. And I think Grant Hill deserves that kind of respect. So without further ado, let's get into this. If you're going to stick around for the vid, please leave a like. That would really help me out. And yeah, let's do this. Here we go.
Grant Hill was the first LeBron James.
He had crossover. He's triple.
Yeah.
He was double guy.
I'm talking in terms of straight triple doubles, dominating the game, playing defense. The dude did everything.
That's true.
But we had to see it on a nightly basis.
And nobody did that before that.
Scottie Pippen.
Those three, man.
No.
No, he wasn't.
No.
Chauncey Billups said it.
He did get a lot of comparison. It was okay. I remember when he was first drafted, a lot of people compared him to like a hybrid of Jordan and Pippen combined, which does kind of make some sense. If you combine the two, it works.
best. He was LeBron James before LeBron James. A point forward with the ball handling and court vision of a guard, but like LeBron, he was a freak athlete who could blow past you or jump over you. He could even clean up on the glass, and you couldn't take your eye off him for a second on a shot attempt, because next thing you know, he would be soaring for a putback. He was never a great outside shooter, but his first step was so quick that even if you sagged off, he'd still somehow blow past you. And before injury, he was a great defender too. He had very few holes in his game and began building his legend as one of the greatest players in Duke program history. When he got to the NBA, he had high expectations and looked to be surpassing them, as at one point he was expected to take the torch from Michael Jordan once he retired. But a foot injury near the end of his time in Detroit stole the better part of the next 7 years of his career.
Yeah, when Jordan retired the first time, these are the two people that he listed, was Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill. As far as like, they would ask him all the time, you know, who are you passing the torch to? And those were the two he said he's watching them, you know. But unfortunately, they both ended up with injuries. Jordan came back, and then, as we all know, he ended up passing that torch to Kobe Bryant,
where he was supposed to take over the league with the young Tracy McGrady in Orlando. And even though he regained his health during his later years in Phoenix, it wasn't the same Grant Hill. And recency bias has him remembered as more of a role player with Phoenix. But Grant Hill in the mid to late 90s was the future of basketball, and someone who doesn't...
He really did play. He played really hard in Phoenix, and he was pretty healthy. He credited the Suns trainers for that health. He went on a good run. It was just too late in his career, unfortunately. If he could have found that kind of health earlier in his career, forget about it. We'd be having a whole different conversation about G. Hill.
Doesn't get talked about enough. So we're going to do that today. Let's jog your memory. Born in Dallas, Grant Hill grew up in Reston, Virginia, and it wasn't all that surprising that he excelled in athletics, as his father, Calvin Hill, was a two-time All-Pro halfback with the Dallas Cowboys.
Damn.
Hill attended
We're ready to learn
South Lakes
something.
High School, where at 14 years old, he stood at 6'2", and on the first day of practice, he was with the freshmen, playing with his friends, until the varsity coach would call him over to their side of the court, and that's where he would stay for the next 4 years. By his senior year, he had grown to 6'8", and was one of the nation's most versatile players, already playing the point forward position that would make him so valuable.
That's crazy. I started out high school at 6 foot, and I tapped out at 6'3". Like, he had a hell of a late spurt of growth.
He helped lead the Seahawks to the state tournament as a junior and senior, and would lead them to district championships in '86 and '88, and a regional championship in '89, while being named a McDonald's All-American, Parade First Team All-American, and Virginia's Mr. Basketball as a senior in 1990. When it came time for college, Hill's mother wanted him to attend Georgetown, and his father wanted him to attend North Carolina.
Wow.
Georgetown would shoot themselves in the foot, as during Hill's visit, Their academic advisor put him through a test she had every potential recruit do, to see if they were at a level of comprehension that would be sufficient enough for them to play for Coach John Thompson, which Hill did not appreciate. And in that moment, he vowed never to attend Georgetown. So it was between North Carolina and...
Damn. I mean, he didn't have to. That's fair enough. He had plenty of other offers.
Duke. However, North Carolina was deep at the forward position, with future NBA players like Rick Fox, George Lynch, and Pete Chilcutt. Yet Duke had lost two great forwards to the NBA in consecutive years, in Danny Ferry and Ala Abdelnaby. So there looked to be more opportunity at Duke, and Hill would commit to play for Coach K going into the
Wow, look how young Coach K is here. Damn.
91 season. Duke was coming off a national championship appearance, but they had been embarrassed by UNLV, so they had unfinished business in 1991. A freshman Grant Hill joined guys like Billy McCaffrey and Thomas Hill, as well as point guard Bobby Hurley and Duke.
Dude, y'all remember Bobby Hurley in college? That dude was lights out. I was waiting for it. Here's Christian Laettner. He's another one. He's one of those cases of he's one of the greatest college players of all time. For some reason, it just didn't translate into the pro game.
Duke's golden boy, Christian Laettner. Hill would play in 36 games, starting 31 of them, and would miss a few games with a broken nose and hip pointer. But he would finish as one of 5 players to average double figures.
11, 5, and 2. Yeah, this was Christian Laettner's team back then. 29 and 2. Man, if he could have done that in the NBA. Bobby Hurley, 13, 2, and 8. 8 assists, yeah. Hey, doing his job as a point guard.
And would show his defensive ability as well, by finishing top 10 in the conference in total steals and blocks. As a freshman, he would often defer to the more experienced players, as he reportedly even questioned if he was cut out for Duke. And it got to the point that Coach K would try interesting tactics to get him out of his shell, such as having Laettner tell the team that Hill was the best player, or telling Hill that he was so unselfish that it made him selfish. Duke started the year at 10-3, but there was a bit of concern around them being able to beat top opponents, as their 3 losses came to ranked teams, with their most recent loss coming to a number 18 ranked Virginia team. When Duke came into the game ranked number 8, they would lose 3 more games over the course of the regular season, but would end strong with a big win over rival North Carolina in Chapel Hill. The ACC tournament came next, and after beating NC State in the semifinals, North Carolina would get their revenge in the championship game, as they defeated Duke. But with a 26-7 record, Duke entered the NCAA tournament as a 2 seed, where Hill would really make a name for himself. He would have 9 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals in a first-round defeat of Louisiana Monroe, then 14 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 steals in a second-round win over Iowa. The Sweet 16 versus UConn wouldn't go well for Hill, as he picked up 2 quick fouls, and by halftime he had 3 fouls. So he would only end up playing 16 minutes and scoring 3 points. Yet Duke would still get the win to advance to an Elite 8 matchup versus
that's Larry Johnson right there.
St. John's. Hill would play better in 23 minutes of action, as he would have 12 points on 50% shooting in another victory, punching their ticket to the Final Four, where an undefeated UNLV team was waiting for them. This would be a back-and-forth game, as Hill finished with 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, but it wasn't looking good for Duke, as with less than 4 minutes left, they were down by 5. But after UNLV guard Greg Anthony fouled out, Duke went on a 6-0 run. Eventually, Larry Johnson would tie the game after being bailed out by a free throw violation. But then Laettner...
Oh, man. I forgot about that free throw of his. Do you guys remember this? It caused all kinds of lane violations throughout his entire career. Check this out.
After being bailed out by a free throw violation. But then Laettner would be fouled and make the free throws to put Duke up by 2 in the final seconds. Then a missed buzzer beater from UNLV would secure the upset and put Duke in the national championship game. The UNLV game proved to be their toughest task, as Duke was able to defeat Kansas by 7 points. Hill would have 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, as well as the best highlight of the game, when he put home a first-half alley-oop pass from Hurley. And in his first college season, Hill had played a huge part in bringing Duke their first national championship, as his freshman season saw him average about 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game.
That's so cool. Seeing him as a role player like that and being that unselfish, that's totally Grant Hill.
In 92, Duke was trying to become the first repeat national champion since the UCLA Bruins of the 70s. Hill would have a much improved season as the team's 3rd best scorer, while also
14-4 off 61%. So still not being selfish enough, but he's up in his numbers.
Also finishing as their second best rebounder, passer, and shot blocker, as he would be named second team all-conference. And Hill would get a legitimate chance to run the point as a college player this year after an injury to Bobby Hurley had him spend 5 games as the team's starting point guard. And in those games, he would average 16.4 points and 5.6 assists.
Wow.
And the team would go 4-1. Duke started the year 17-0 and would ultimately finish at 25-2 as the number 1 ranked team in the nation. Yet late in the season, Hill sprained his ankle in practice, and after missing 3 games, he would come off the bench to be eased back into things. And although Hill was arguably the most talented player on the team, that's a nice luxury off the bench, which would be especially evident in the ACC championship game, when Hill came off the bench to go 8 for 8 from the field and scored 20 points in a Duke revenge win over UNC, as they would.
Man, imagine that. You're that hot, you go 8 for 8, but you only shoot the ball 8 times. Too unselfish. Yeah, Coach K was right. He started out way too unselfish.
Now enter the tournament as a 1 seed. Hill would have 5 points on 1 of 5 shooting, but would also add 5 rebounds and 5 assists in a first-round win versus Campbell. He would have 11 points and 4 rebounds in a second-round win versus Iowa, then would have 13 points and 4 rebounds in a Sweet 16 win versus Seton Hall, setting up an Elite 8 matchup with Kentucky. This game has been referred to as the greatest college basketball game ever played, as underdog Kentucky was hanging with Duke all game, even forcing overtime, and then going ahead by 1 with about 2 seconds left after a Sean Woods runner. As up to this point, Hill had 11 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists, but it would be his next assist, which would become his most famous.
For those of you who know, you know what's about to come here. This is a hell of a moment in college basketball history right here.
Duke had to go the length of the court and try to get a shot off in just a couple seconds if they wanted to win. But Duke was ready for this exact situation, as Hill would explain that they had a passing progression drill, which would eventually end in one player trying to hit the other in stride for a layup on a full court pass. And Hill would recall how he would let everyone in practice know how good he was at this pass, leading to Coach K drawing up a play for him to get the ball to Leitner. And
it's a football pass.
The rest is history.
Better shooting range.
Whoop-ah.
There's the
Bang, on the money.
Puts it up.
I mean, that's so hard. It's so hard to land that, because it's gonna drop where just Leitner's hands can get to, just high enough.
And the rest is history.
Better shooting range.
Hold up. Oh man, it's so blurry. It's so blurry. Let's see. God, it's so blurry. I could see it though. Look at that. It was almost too high, like just about too high. But the only person who can catch that is Christian Leitner. Bang. Okay. Let me get back to normal here. Okay, here we go.
To Leitner. Puts it up.
And a hell of a shot by Leitner, too.
So as famous as Leitner's shot is, Hill's great pass deserves more recognition, as without it, Duke would not be heading back to the Final Four. This would be another close game versus Indiana, with the Hoosiers taking a 5-point lead going into the half. But Hill would finish with 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. Yet he would foul out, but Duke was able to outscore Indiana by 8 in the second half to set them up with a chance to repeat as champions. For the first time since returning from his injury, Hill was in the starting lineup for the final versus the team that was the complete opposite of Duke in the Michigan Wolverines.
Oh, crap, yeah. Yeah, this team was no joke.
And their Fab 5 freshman starting lineup.
Yeah, but Juwan Howard, Rose, Weber, and I don't remember King or the other guy. It's been too long now. But yeah, imagine that. 3 guys in your starting lineup about to go pro. Then again, Duke had 2 in their starting lineup about to go pro, so hell of a game.
But after 2 close games, Duke would run away with this one, defeating Michigan by 20 points, with Hill stuffing the stat sheet. He would finish with 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks.
Attaboy.
As Duke had won their second straight title. And for the regular season, Hill averaged about 14 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. It was Hill's team going into the 93 season, as Leitner had graduated and had been drafted to the NBA. Second-year forward Cherokee Parks would do his best to fill the void, but he couldn't replicate Leitner's production. Hill would now lead the team in scoring and finish second in rebounds on nearly 58% shooting. as he would end up being named first team all-conference and a consensus second team all-American. And his two-way ability was on display, as he was top 3 in the conference with 2.5 steals per game and top 10 with 1.4 blocks per game.
That's something that no one really talks about, was his defensive. He was honestly, even at his old age, he was one of the best defenders on the Phoenix Suns when he played for us too.
Route to being voted NABC Defensive Player of the Year. Duke began the year as the number 4 ranked team in the nation, but after an early December defeat of top-ranked Michigan, they would take over the number 1 spot and stay there for about a month, as they started 10-0 before losing to Georgia Tech, and overall they would finish the regular season at 23-6. But Hill did break his toe mid-season and would miss 5 games. And even after coming back, he likely wasn't playing on a fully healed toe. They would face Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament quarterfinals, but would lose by 3. And would
one thing I didn't know about was how injury prone he was even in college. This is concerning to see every year he's suffering some kind of an injury.
Then enter the NCAA tournament as the 8th seed. The first round would be an easy defeat of Southern Illinois, with Hill putting up 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. But their second round matchup versus Cal would not have the same result, as the 2-time defending champs were bounced. Hill played great with 18 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 8 steals, but it still just wasn't enough. And Hill's junior season saw him average about 18 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Hurley had now graduated, and even though Hill could have easily left early and become a lottery pick, he would return for his senior season, where he would fill Hurley's spot and become the team's starting point guard. Parks would have an improved season, and senior forward Antonio Lang would have the best year of his career. For the second straight year, Hill would lead the team in scoring and steals, while finishing second in rebounds per game, as he once again finished top 5 in the conference in steals. But it was as a distributor where he excelled, as he led the team with a career-high 5.2 assists per game, which would be a top 5 mark in the conference. Hill's incredible senior season would see him again named first team all-conference, but he would also be named Conference Player of the Year and a consensus first-team All-American. He would play in every game this season, as his 35.7 minutes per game would also be second in the conference. Duke would start 10-0 and at one point would rank as high as number 1 in the nation before finishing the regular season at 22-4 and ranked number 2. After defeating Clemson in the ACC tournament quarterfinals, they would lose in the semifinals to Virginia, but their NCAA tournament run would be much better than last year. Duke would defeat Texas Southern in round 1, as Hill had 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Then in round 2, he would have 25 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 steals in a defeat of Michigan State. The Sweet 16 versus Marquette gave Duke a scare, as at halftime they were down by 1. But in the second half, Hill would score 16 of his game-high 22, as Duke won by 10 to advance to the Elite 8 versus top-seeded Purdue and the nation's leading scorer Glenn Robinson.
Now, this is a case of the old school, where it was really beneficial for a guy like him to stay in college. He improved year after year after year, and by the time he went to the NBA, he was ready to be a star. But if he would have just come fresh out of high school or after his freshman year or something like that in college, he wasn't ready. So nowadays, you'd get drafted in and then struggle and get sent off to the G League.
Offensively, Hill would only manage 11 points on 4 of 12 shooting, but his impact was felt on the defensive end, as he held Robinson to 13 points on 6 of 22 shooting, and Duke won, to advance to a Final Four matchup versus Florida. And behind Hill's 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists, Duke would get the win, marking Hill's 3rd championship appearance in 4 years.
Crazy.
Unfortunately, he couldn't get a 3rd title, as they would lose to Arkansas by 4. Hill would play 38 minutes, but early in the game he went down hard on his back, which may have had an effect on him, as he had just 12 points on 4 of 11 shooting, while committing 9 turnovers. However, he would add 14 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals. But his regular season would see him average about 17.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists.
He's consistent. He's just beefing up those middle numbers little by little
per game. So even though Hill was a guaranteed lottery pick had he left after his junior season, there was now discussion of him being the top pick going into the 94 draft. And although he wouldn't be number 1, he was pretty close.
With the 3rd pick in the 1994 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons select Grant Hill from Duke University.
Hill was joining a Detroit Pistons team who were moving on from their bad boy era.
Yeah. They still had Joe Dumars there, if I'm not mistaken. But I think he was the sole survivor of that era.
For trading away Dennis Rodman, losing Bill Laimbeer to retirement, and then losing Isaiah Thomas to career-ending injury, all in the last calendar year. The Pistons still had one great player remaining from those teams in Joe Dumars, but there was a lot of expectations riding on Hill, and it seemed early on that he would meet and maybe even exceed them. Hill and Dumars would be the team's top players, but they also featured a second-year guard in Allen Houston, and it was hoped that he and Hill could form something special. Hill's very first game would see him put up 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks, as overall in the 70 games he played, he hit double figures in 65 of them, while having 6 games with at least 30. He would also record 5 double-doubles and even a triple-double in an April 7th win over Orlando when he had 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. Hill would lead the Pistons in scoring and steals, while finishing second in assists and third in rebounds. He would
26 and wow. So look at this. So he goes to the NBA and he's actually putting up slightly better numbers. Like his scoring is just progressing higher while his rebounds are increasing a little bit. His assists are staying consistent. His steals are consistent. This is cool to see. It's a cool progression to see. And look at Joe D was still getting it done.
Finished second among rookies in scoring and assists, as he would be named Rookie of the Year. But he would share the award with the Mavs' Jason Kidd, as they were the first co-rookie of the years in 25 seasons. But Hill wasn't just a popular rookie. He was a popular player, as he would be voted to the All-Star game, yet was the leading vote-getter, ahead of guys like Michael Jordan and Shaquille O'Neal, becoming the first rookie to lead all players in votes.
Yeah, Grant Hill was huge when he came in. Those Grant Hill Drink Sprite commercials, which I see they're revamping now, which is really cool. But yeah, he was an instant star, but he played like one. Same with J. Kidd. J. Kidd was a beast. Speaking of which, I got to cover him, huh?
Hill impressed fans and peers with his poise and maturity on the court, as well as his versatility and ability to play multiple positions and play them well. And his great athleticism
Patrick Ewing
and highlight plays also made him a fan favorite. So Hill was great, but the Pistons had lost too much to be competitive already, and would finish at 28 and 54 and miss the playoffs. As Hill's rookie season saw him average about 20 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. Detroit had a new coach going into the 96 season in
Mr. Collins. It made sense. Get Jordan's old coach in there.
Doug Collins, and tried to improve their defense by drafting big man Theo Ratliff. And shortly before the start of the season, they traded for veteran forward Otis Thorpe. Hill showed improvement in year 2, but Houston showed a lot of improvement as well.
Yeah,
as the two combined for nearly 40 points per game. Hill would be a top 20 scorer in the league, as well as a top 15 rebounder, behind a career-high 9.8 rebounds per game. And his 6.9 assists per game would also be top 15. He would lead Detroit in all 3 categories, as he would hit double figures in 77 games, while recording 6 games with at least 30, and also would record 34 double-doubles and 10 triple-doubles, which would lead the league. And his two-way value was on...
Damn, man, 10 triple-doubles back then? That's huge.
Full display, as he finished with the 12th lowest defensive rating in the league. He would be voted second-team All-NBA, and for the second consecutive year, he would lead all players in All-Star voting. He would also finish 9th in MVP voting, marking the first of 5 consecutive years finishing top 10 in MVP voting. The Pistons,
those jerseys were awesome, by the way. I remember this.
Would start the year at 9 and 13, but would be able to find their footing as the season went on. They had a bottom 5 scoring offense, but their top 2 scoring defense would eventually see them finish at 46 and 36 and get a first-round matchup versus Orlando.
What an improvement. They basically doubled their wins in one season.
The Shaq and Penny-led Magic were too much for Detroit, as they swept the Pistons quite handily. Yet Hill would have a good debut. He would start with 21 points and 11 rebounds on 10 of 13 shooting in Game 1, then would have 19 points and 5 rebounds in Game 2, before finishing with 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in Game 3. And he would also help hold Penny Hardaway to below 42% shooting in the series. But Hill's second season saw him average about 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists per game.
Damn. Okay, that's an explosion. His rebounds went up huge and his assists went up huge. And his scoring is still just going up. Shooting percentage is still legit. No, he was not a three-point shooter. That first step, I kind of forgot until I've been watching this now. That first step was explosive. He blew by everybody. We saw him blow by Jordan. We saw him blow by Shaq. He had Scottie Pippen. helping out on D, and he still blew by him too. Like, he was quick.
Over the summer, Hill would be a member of Dream Team 3, who participated in the Atlanta Summer Olympics. He would appear in 6 games, averaging 9.7 points.
Wait, what year?
3, who participated in the Atlanta below 42% shooting in the series. But Hill's second season saw him average about 20 points,
Sorry, guys, hold on.
10 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. Over the summer, Hill would be a member of Dream Team 3.
I thought we called that Dream Team 2 because it was 1996. And the original Dream Team was in 1992 in Barcelona. So this was the next Olympics, which would make them Dream Team 2. I swear I even have like basketball cards that call them Dream Team 2. I might be mistaken. Let me know in the comments. Am I tripping here? But this is literally the second Dream Team. Unless they did like a summer league and they considered that a Dream Team, which would be kind of weak. Yeah, I don't know. It's every 4 years. Summer Olympics, 1996 in Atlanta. I remember this very clearly. Huh.
Who participated in the Atlanta Summer Olympics. He would appear in 6 games, averaging 9.7 points, 3.5 assists, and 3 steals per game.
Yep.
As his 18 total steals led the team as they cruised to a gold medal. But something else happened over the offseason, which was that Allen Houston had left to sign with New York. So Detroit would be losing a lot of offense. They would get a career year from point guard Lindsey Hunter in 97.
Lindsey Hunter.
And Joe Dumars would earn his final All-Star selection. Yet the Pistons would still have a bottom 5 scoring offense. However, Hill would have arguably the best season of his career. He would lead the team in scoring, rebounding, assists, and steals, while also finishing top 20 in the league in all 4 categories. He would once again be voted an All-Star, and this year would be named first team All-NBA, while finishing third in MVP voting. Hill would hit double figures in 78 games.
Karl Malone was number 1. 1997 then? 96, 97? 96, 97, 97, 98. Okay. Yeah, Karl Malone was having a historic year. Ready to go to the finals that year. Okay. Still, I never thought the mailman was that popular, though. I thought MJ would be number 1 on that list just based off of popularity. Grant Hill should be number 2. Interesting. I guess before we knew how messed up of a person Karl Malone was, maybe he was more popular than I remember. I know he was an elite player. I can never take that away from him. But I don't remember him being popular, and All-Star voting is kind of a popularity contest.
Games, while recording 7 games with at least 30. He would have 23 double-doubles and 13 triple-doubles, which would again lead the league. He would pull down a career-high 18 rebounds on 2 different occasions, and would record 34 points, 15 rebounds, and a career-high 14 assists in a January 18th win over the Lakers. And Detroit overall was playing great. They would start the season at 16-3, and were 34-12 at the All-Star break. As overall, They would finish the year at 54-28.
Wow.
Which was in large part due to their second-ranked scoring.
So when he first came there, they won like 20-something games, then 40-something, and now 50-something. Hell of a progression.
Defense, as Hill would finish with the 8th lowest defensive rating in the league. This time, Detroit would get a first-round matchup
I want to check that out real quick.
With the All-Star break. As overall, they would finish the year at 54-28, which was in large part due to their second-ranked scoring defense. As Hill would finish with the...
All right, who's above him? Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing, Mutombo, Brown. The only Brown I knew in 96 was like D Brown. I'm probably missing somebody so obvious. You guys are going to let me know in the comments, and I'll probably feel stupid. Charles Oakley, Olajuwon, Kemp. Kind of surprised by that, but no, he did block the hell out of everybody. And then Grant Hill. That's insane. He was above Charles Barkley at that point. And Weber. And Pippen. And Malone. This is very impressive. And Jordan. Very, very, very impressive.
The 8th lowest defensive rating in the league. This time, Detroit would get a first-round matchup with Atlanta. And even though Hill played great, the Pistons would again get bounced in the first round. Hill would have 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists in a Game 1 loss, then would come back with 25 points and 5 rebounds in a Game 2 win. He would have 24 points and 8 assists in Game 3 to take a 2-1 series lead. And even though he would put up 28 points in Game 4, the Pistons would lose. Then the Hawks would close out the series in Game 5, with Hill recording 21 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals. And maybe this series would have gone differently if Theo Ratliff was at 100%, as he only appeared in 3 of the 5 games, and would average less than 6 minutes in those 3 games. But Hill's great season saw him average about 21.5 points, 9 rebounds, and a career-high 7.3.
Damn, his numbers are still increasing. And that was the first round back in the 90s, so he took him 5 games. That's a 5-game series back then. It wasn't a 7-game series, so at least he took him the distance.
3 assists per game. It wasn't the first time he had heard it, but with most believing 98 would be Michael Jordan's last season, the title of Next Michael was getting louder and louder for Hill. But up to this point, he had given every indication that he could live up to that. Hill would do his usual damage this season, but the Pistons had some roster and coaching changes, which made it hard for them to replicate their success from last year. Thorpe had been traded to Vancouver during the offseason, and Dumars had been struggling to start the year. The Pistons had boasted one of the best defenses, yet one of the worst offenses for the last couple of years, so in a move to improve their offense, they sent 2 of their top defensive players in Ratliff and Aaron McKee to Philly for a package headlined by their young swingman Jerry Stackhouse, who had become expendable with the emergence of Allen Iverson. It took Stackhouse some time to adjust this season, as he appeared in 57 games for the Pistons in a bench role, yet he would still end the year as a top 3 scorer on the team. Hill continued as the team star, leading the team in scoring, assists, and steals, while finishing second in rebounds. He would hit double figures in 78 games, while recording 10 games with at least 30, and would rack up 32 double-doubles and 4 triple-doubles, as he would earn his 4th straight All-Star selection and a second-team All-NBA selection. But the Pistons weren't winning, as they were sitting at 21-24.
I mean, it's no joke. That's Scottie Pippen guarding him, you know? So it doesn't matter who's playing D on him. It is similar to Michael Jordan in that case, and I like Kobe Bryant and Tracy McGrady, because it don't matter who's guarding you. He's going to get you with this.
Sitting at 21-24 when coach Doug Collins was replaced with Alvin Gentry, which would be a breath of fresh air for Hill, as he had grown tired of Collins and had not been enjoying the game. But the Pistons wouldn't show any improvement under Gentry, as they would go 16-21.
Whoa, I don't remember this. Alvin Gentry. He ended up replacing Mike D'Antoni. Well, not directly. He was our next actual main head coach for the Suns. Actually, I'm getting that all wrong. We went from Mike D'Antoni to what's his name? Terry Porter. We had Shaq, and we tried to play a slower game, and that didn't work. So we brought in Alvin Gentry to come in and play more of the Mike D'Antoni system. I didn't know about his history of coaching, though. Here he is in Detroit, coaching Grant Hill.
Rest of the way.
So he got to coach Grant Hill twice.
At 37-45 and missed the playoffs. However, Hill would have one of his career-defining highlights during a March 16th game versus Miami, where he and Miami star Alonzo Mourning would get tangled up and go to the ground during a routine screen. They would get in each other.
Yeah, Alonzo's holding his arm. He could rip his arm off.
Their face, but Hill would get the final words on the Pistons' next possession down.
Yeah, good job, G. Oh, on his face. That's a Michael Jordan thing. You're going to piss me off? I'm going to dunk on your head. Alonzo knows it, too. He just walks away.
Hill would blow past Dan Marley to put the shot blocker
Another good defender, by the way, Dan Marley.
On one of the worst posters of his career. But that would be a high of a disappointing season.
Boom. That's one of the greatest shot blockers of all time right there, and one of the greatest defensive players of all time. He had to blow by a very good defender to dunk on one of the greatest defenders of all time. This ain't no joke.
As Hill averaged about 21 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. The lockout occurred during the offseason, meaning a shortened season come 1999. This would end up being the final season of Dumars' career, as Stackhouse continued a 6-man role for the team. Yet he would finish second to Hill in scoring. Hill would also get reunited with an old friend, as the Pistons had acquired Christian Laettner in a sign-and-trade before the start of the year.
Wow, I don't remember
Hill
that
would play and start in all 50 games, as he would lead the team in scoring, rebounds, and assists, while finishing second in steals. And his 21.1 points would be a top 10 mark in the league. He would once again be named second-team All-NBA, and would have likely been named an All-Star had there been an All-Star game this year. Hill would hit double figures in all but 2 games, while also recording his career high of 46 points on 14 of 21 shooting in a February 8th defeat of Washington. He would also continue his versatile play with 9 double-doubles and 1 triple-double this season, as so many years of playing the point forward so well would assure that this was the 4th straight year of Hill putting up the highest assist per game average of any non-point guard.
What a beautiful play.
After a 3-5 start, the Pistons were able to recover to finish the season at 29-21, which would get them back in the playoffs with a matchup versus Atlanta. But just like 2 years earlier, the Pistons would lose in 5. Hill would again play great as he would lead Detroit in scoring, rebounding, assists, and steals in the series.
Damn, first round again though, huh? He just couldn't get out of there. Sorry for the cough. Damn. No matter what he did, he couldn't get out of that first round.
And would record 3
This
games
is a
with
lot like Tracy McGrady.
at least 20 points and 2 double-doubles. The Pistons would go down 0-2 before fighting back to even the series. But in the series-deciding Game 5, Hill would go 10 of 27 from the field in a 12-point loss. And for the regular season, he averaged about 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. Dumars retired after the season, meaning Stackhouse was finally going to get his chance to be a starter. And he and Hill would make up one of the best 1-2 scoring punches in the league.
Damn.
The two
Yeah,
combined
that's
for
a huge increase in points.
nearly 50 points
For
per game.
both of them, actually. Grant Hill, too. He bumped his scoring up to 26. Back then, that's massive. They did not put up 120 points a game back then. This was huge.
As Hill's career-high 25.8 points per game would be 3rd in the league, and he would still finish 3rd on the team in rebounding and 1st in assists. Hill would hit double figures in 71 games, while having 29 games with at least 30, and 4 games with at least 40, while also recording 13 double-doubles. Hill would be voted to his 5th All-Star game and would once again be named 2nd team All-NBA. But now the Pistons featured a top 2 scoring offense and bottom 5 scoring defense, and it wasn't looking good later in the year, as after a 28-30 start, they would fire Alvin Gentry and replace him with George Irvine. He would help them go 14-10 the rest of the way to finish at 40-42, and luckily this was enough for a first-round matchup with Miami. However, Hill had suffered a bone bruise on his ankle and missed the final 3 games of the regular season.
Is it going to happen again? Is he going to get eliminated in the first round?
Though it wasn't fully healed, he would suit up for Game 1, yet would only put up 13 points on 3 of 9 shooting, along with 6 turnovers in a loss. Then in Game 2, Hill would say he felt a pop in his ankle sometime in the first half and would only manage 4 more minutes in the third quarter.
This is when it happened. Okay. Yep. So you saw this guy's, Grant Hill's trajectory just going up. And this is when it all changes.
Before taking himself out of the game in another loss. And a day later, it was announced he had fractured a bone in his ankle, ending his year, as Miami ended up sweeping Detroit. But for his regular season, Hill averaged about 26 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game.
Fantastic.
Hill had a clause in his contract which allowed him to opt out after this season, and he was one of a few high-profile free agents going into the 2000 offseason. The Orlando Magic would work out a sign-and-trade deal with Toronto for their young star Tracy McGrady. Then just a few days later, the announcement would be made that Hill would be joining McGrady in Orlando.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the biggest thing ever. These two guys. And they even tried to get Tim Duncan, but there's some crap. Doc Rivers apparently blew that. Because the story goes, Tim Duncan asked if he could bring his wife on the plane when traveling, and Doc just flat out said no. And then that was it. End of story. So he said, okay, screw it. I'll stay in San Antonio. We know how the rest worked out. But yeah, it was supposed to be this massive trio. A kind of a naturally formed and traded for big three was about to happen in Orlando. But T-Mac went there, and he ended up all alone. Not Grant Hill's fault. It was injuries.
As the Pistons agreed to a sign-and-trade, which saw Hill end up in Orlando with a 7-year, $92.8 million contract. And the Magic were supposed to pull off the trifecta in signing big man Tim Duncan away from the Spurs. But reportedly a team rule which head coach Doc Rivers employed prevented Duncan's wife from being allowed on the team plane, which would result in the Magic losing out on the potential super team of Duncan, Hill, and McGrady. But nonetheless...
Yeah, okay. Because T-Mac and young Duncan could have still got it done. I mean, this would have rewritten NBA history, so I'm glad it didn't happen this way. But at the same time, I am a big T-Mac fan, so I would be very interested to see this alternate universe play out. I wonder if anyone's done one of those 2K simulations where all three of these guys end up in Orlando and all end up healthy. I'd like to see what kind of run they go on.
Hill and McGrady were more than enough to compete with anyone, yet very soon Hill would find out that trying to play through his ankle injury was the biggest mistake of his career. The Magic looked set going into 0-1. They had two of the league's most dynamic players in Hill and McGrady, alongside Mike Miller, who would win Rookie of the Year.
Mike Miller. He won Rookie of the Year, huh? Man. A lot of people forget he was on the Miami Heat super team with LeBron, Wade, Bosh, Chalmers, Eddie House. This guy was lights out from three.
As they were being led by the reigning Coach of the Year in Doc Rivers. But before the McGrady-Hill era even got started, it came crashing down. Hill had undergone a major ankle surgery in late April, but was back and would play in 33 minutes in the season opener, tallying 9 points and 10 assists. But his ankle would bother him and he would play just one more game before being shut down indefinitely on November 8th, as Orlando didn't really know how long he would be out for. He would return in mid-December and play 2 more games before being shut down again, and eventually on December 27th, it was announced he would miss the remainder of the year.
Imagine being Tracy McGrady and you leave Toronto with your cousin, Vince Carter, to go here, and this happens. He says he understands why he did it, because Orlando, Florida is his hometown. So he wanted to play for his home crowd. And I get it. But he has expressed some regret now in his older age that he left Vince. Because the two of them, if they had an opportunity, because they were both young. They were both stars. They could have really made a splash if they stayed together long enough.
As he needed another serious surgery, which involved a pelvic bone graft and a lot of screws. And years later,
bone graft.
Hill would express frustration with Detroit team doctors, as reportedly when he first suffered the injury, doctors didn't believe him and thought he was being soft, so he tried to push through it, and would even feel some validation when he learned that it was actually broken.
Man, no wonder why by the time he came into Phoenix and our trainers actually helped him, he was so thankful, because he talked about it all the time when he was here in Phoenix, because they'd ask him, why are you so healthy? What's going on? What's different? And he'd always say, the Suns trainers, there's great staff. I guess he had some really bad experiences in Detroit.
Hill's popularity among fans was never more apparent than this season, as even though he played just 4 games, he would be voted to his 6th career All-Star game as a starter.
Wow,
but
imagine
Orlando
that.
would finish the year at 43-39 and lose to Milwaukee in round 1. As Hill's incredibly anticipated first year in Orlando consisted of just 4 games, with him averaging about 14 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists per game. Hill was once again back for the season opener going into 0-2, and this time it was looking a lot better, as he would play and start in 14 of the first 15 games of the year and was putting up solid numbers, even leading the team in rebounding. But he was suffering from bone spurs in his surgically repaired ankle, and eventually doctors suggested in late November that he rest for a bit. But then in early December, the news that nobody wanted to hear came out, as another season-ending injury for Hill was announced. The Magic were 7-8 at the time of the injury, and would finish the year at 44-38, but again lose in the first round, this time to Charlotte, as Hill's slightly longer season would see him average about 17 points, 9 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. The 0-3 season would see Hill play more games than he had in the past 2 seasons combined, but seeing that he only played in 18 games since October of 2000, that wasn't saying much.
Yeah.
But he would still play over a third of the games this year, as he appeared in 29 contests, and at times he would look like Detroit Grant Hill, as he had 4 games with at least 27 points and recorded 5 double-doubles. And he had played most of the team's games going into January, but then his ankle really started slowing him down, as from December 28th to January 16th, he would appear in just 3 games.
God, it's so heartbreaking. It's kind of why I held off on covering it, because it's so damn heartbreaking the way his career went. But we're gonna hit some bright points once he gets to Phoenix. We're gonna end with a little bit of a bang.
Before again being shut down. Then in late February, it was once again announced that Hill would need surgery.
God damn.
However, this time he was slightly relieved, as he had received a new diagnosis that this whole time it may not have been his ankle, but instead his foot that was the problem, and that a more minor surgery could be done to correct it. About a month later, he would have the surgery and miss the remainder of the season, as Orlando finished at 42-40 and lost to Detroit in the first round, as Hill would average about 14.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. However, the surgery was supposed to be routine, yet it ended up being life-threatening for Hill. Shortly after the surgery, Hill contracted a fever of 104 and was having convulsions, where he'd have to be rushed to the hospital, and it was determined he had a staph infection. Luckily, doctors were able to get it under control, but the now added recovery time would force Hill to sit out the entire 04 season. And to make things even more difficult, during the summer of 03, Hill's wife would also be diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the age of 28. So Hill was back for the 05 season, but things looked different. The Magic were coming off a horrible 21-61 finish, and there was one major piece missing, as the player that was supposed to team with Hill to bring Orlando a title was now in Houston.
Yeah, I get it. He couldn't wait any longer, and I don't blame him at all. Yep, it was time for T-Mac to team up with old Yao Ming. That was fun.
After a massive trade had seen McGrady shipped to the Rockets, with the main returning pieces being Houston's high-scoring backcourt of Steve Francis and Coutinho Mobley.
And Steve Francis, yeah. That would be a good lineup.
Additionally, the Magic had received the first overall pick and would select high school big man Dwight Howard. But for the first time since his Detroit days, Grant Hill would play the majority of the season. He would play and start in 67 games, while even finishing as the team's second leading scorer behind Francis. He would hit double figures in 64 games, have 32 with at least 20, and put together a vintage performance versus the Clippers.
Okay, I did not recall that Dwight Howard and Grant Hill actually played together. I thought there was like a year gap in between.
Finished with 39 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists in a February 15th win, as he would even be voted Player of the Week in late November after averaging 19.3 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. And he would also make his final All-Star appearance, as he was once again voted in as a starter, scoring 6 points in the game. Orlando improved, but they were one of the worst defensive teams in the league, as their 36-46 finish would not be enough for a playoff berth, and Hill's season would see him average about 19.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game.
Still solid.
Going into 06,
67 games.
the Magic had another new coach in Brian Hill, but would get a much improved year from second-year point guard Jameer Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
However, Francis would appear in 46 games for the team before being traded to New York on February 22nd. But the 46 games Francis played would be more than double what Hill managed this year. Hill would have sports hernia surgery shortly before the start of the...
I remember this, too. God damn, what didn't go wrong for him? A freaking sports hernia. I had one of those, by the way, when I was in high school. Not fun. But yeah, you can recover in about 3 to 6 weeks. I'd say you recover in about 3 weeks, but as far as being an active athlete, yeah, six weeks for sure.
The season, and wouldn't make his season debut until mid-December. He would play in 10 games before having to sit out again due to the same hernia, which would keep him out for over a month. He would return for another 11 games later in the year, but his season would be over on March 13th, and he would imply that if he needed to get another surgery, then his career would be over, as he would retire.
Yeah.
The Magic would again finish at 36-46 and miss the playoffs, and in Hill's 21 games, he would average about 15 points, 4 rebounds,
21 games. Fuck.
and 2.5 assists per game. Hill was back for the 07 season, but it was the final year of his contract. And with younger guys
this is why I don't remember him playing with Dwight Howard, was because he was barely there. He was barely playing at this time. Man, it was a miracle what happened in Phoenix.
Dwight Howard, Jameer Nelson, and Hedo Turkoglu on the team, it seemed likely that this would be Hill's final season with Orlando. He would, however, put together another relatively healthy year, as he appeared in 65 games while finishing as the team's second leading scorer.
65 games? What a roller coaster. So Dwight Howard is just starting to rise up. I mean, this is still like, this is near Scottie Pippen numbers, so it's good role player numbers. Turk, okay, I see the problem, though. They don't have, like, the guy at this point, because Grant Hill couldn't be that guy anymore. They have a bunch of role players. Dwight Howard, a couple more years, he could have been that guy, but not quite yet.
And shooting nearly 52% from the field. He would hit double figures in 50 games while recording 18 games with at least 20. The Magic weren't great, as they had one of the worst offenses in the league, but the rapidly ascending Howard helped them feature a top 10 scoring defense, as they were able to manage a 40-42 record and get a first-round playoff matchup versus Detroit. Hill would get to play his former team, and although Orlando was swept, he played a great series. He would finish second behind Howard in scoring and rebounding, while leading the team in assists and shooting 50% from the field, as he would record 3 games in double figures. But it was yet another first-round exit for Hill, and his regular season saw him average about 14.5 points, 3.5 rebounds.
65 games, 14, 3, 2, and 1. 52% shooting, though. That's actually pretty impressive.
And 2 assists per game. But after appearing in just 199 of a possible 574 games during his 7 years in Orlando, the Magic would not re-sign him. But Hill would find the perfect home quite soon. Hill's services were wanted by a lot of
go. And honestly, all of us here were terrified when he came here because his history was so bad. You know, this wasn't Detroit Grant Hill we were getting. This was like, you've been injured nonstop for the last 5 years, Grant Hill. I didn't want him here. I thought this was a big mistake. But he actually played hella good here in Phoenix.
But ultimately he would choose to sign with Phoenix, as he felt he could have a large role on a team that was ready to win now. And this would be a perfect landing spot, as Phoenix's training staff was developing a reputation for helping older players rediscover the fountain of youth. Hill would join the Suns' offensive trio of Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, and Sean Marion, as he would be an ideal starter in Mike D'Antoni's fast-paced offense. But the Suns' trio didn't last too long after Hill's arrival, as on February 6th, Marion was shipped to Miami.
It was a huge mistake. Steve Kerr, I'm looking at you. You were the GM at that time. Big freaking mistake, man. You blew up our Suns. In any other kind of system, Shaq was still close enough to his prime to be very effective. But you're going to go with the run and gun Suns and throw the biggest guy in the NBA in there? Shaq couldn't run up and down the court fast enough. It wasn't fair. There's no way he could have done it. I don't know what Steve Kerr was thinking. I don't know what he envisioned or how he thought Shaq could ever get down to court. But we gave up our number one. Sean Marion was our offensive rebounding guy. He was the best at it on our team. Actually, he was the best rebounder on our team, period. You're going to replace him with Shaq, who can get rebounds. However, you can't get rebounds if he's not down to court on the offensive end. So we struggled big. And then nobody could penetrate anymore. We basically voided out Amari Stoudemire, because Amari lived in the paint off the pick and roll. But the pick and roll became a cluster F because big body Shaq was down there. Like I said, not this and Shaq, one of the greatest of all time. This was not the right fit for him at all. It was pretty cool to see Shaq in uniform, though. I got to see a couple games live and got to see Shaq here suited up as the big Shaqtus. It was fun, but it was never going to work.
Suns receiving aging big man Shaquille O'Neal in return. Hill would play at least 70 games for the first time since 2000, and his major injury wouldn't be his foot or ankle. It would be an emergency appendectomy in early January. He would hit double figures in 40...
Dude, I had that too. I had my appendix burst on me. Yeah, I was like considered dead for a little bit there, but I came back to life just so I can do this YouTube video for you all.
39 games, while also recording 4 double-doubles, as he was finally on an actual contender, with Phoenix finishing the season at 55-27 and getting a first-round matchup versus San Antonio. But it seemed like Hill couldn't escape the first round, as San Antonio won in 5. However, Hill wasn't 100%, as he was trying to play through a groin injury. But after scoring a combined 11 points in the first 3 games, he would sit out the final 2, and his regular season would...
I don't recall the groin injury either. All right, what'd he play? 70 games, 13 points, 5. Yeah, he was just solid. Solid role player. That's all we needed him to be. Like I said, this would have worked if it wasn't for the Shaq swap for Sean Marion. It would have worked. It would have really, really worked. We would have been a small ball team. Nash at the 1, 2... who do we have back then? I think it was Raja Bell for his defensive skills. Have Grant Hill at the 3. At the 4, Sean Marion. At the 5, Amari Stoudemire. Would have been a hell of a run and gun team.
see him average about 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. D'Antoni was out going into 09, and after beginning the year with Terry Porter
this
at
is when
helm,
it all went to hell. It all went to hell. The problem was we got Shaq, and he couldn't run the run and gun team. So what do? We doubled down on it, and we got Terry Porter to come in and play slow ball, post ball, and that was a massive failure over here.
the Suns would end the year with Alvin Gentry.
So it was such a massive failure. Terry Porter didn't even get to finish the year. So we brought in Alvin Gentry, and we started running gun all over again. It was a mess. Honestly, we should have never gotten rid of Mike D'Antoni. That was a big problem. We should have done it. We should have doubled down.
They would pull off an early season trade to acquire Jason Richardson.
Yeah, J-Rich.
But they would also only get 53 games out of Stoudemire this season. However, they would also get 82 games out of Hill. As at 36 years old, he appeared in all 82 games for the first and only time in his career. He would be one of
that's
seven
something to be proud of, though. After that kind of a journey, he should be really proud of that.
players to average at least 10 points, as he would have 52 games in double figures and 5 double-doubles. But the loss of Stoudemire was a big hit, and although the Suns finished 10 games above 500, a 46-36 record still wasn't enough for a playoff berth in a competitive Western Conference, as Hill's season saw him average about 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.5...
Still solid, good shooting percentage, 52. It's funny, his three-point shooting percentage is like slowly getting better, but he never really was that much of a three-point shooter. Even though with the Suns we did have him on the wing quite a bit, I didn't like that we did that. He's more of a penetrator. But he played all 82 games, and that's the biggest stat of all right there. Man, look at our record. Man, we went from number one in the league, record-wise, just a couple years before this, to getting Shaq, and then everything just dominoed. Man. This is my favorite era of the Suns, too. The Steve Nash era. We made some mistakes.
assists per game. With a full season from Stoudemire and Richardson, the 2010
What is that
Suns
cheese ball smile? What are you doing?
would be one of the best during the Steve Nash era. Hill was again healthy, playing and starting in 81 games while recording double figures in 50 of them and 6 double-doubles. And he would also shoot nearly 44% from deep. The Suns didn't play...
Wow. So he really did work on it. If you guys don't recall, when he was his first couple of years, he was getting I think it was 14, 15% from deep. So slowly but surely he got up there.
Play a lot of defense, but they had the top-ranked scoring offense in the league and rode that to a 54-28 finish and a first-round matchup with Portland. And in his 16th season, Hill would finally make it out of the first round, as Phoenix won in 6 games. Hill would only average about 8 points per game, but would have a great game too, with 20 points on 10 of 11 shooting. And he would also lead the team in rebounding, as he had only 1 game with less than 7 rebounds. The second round brought the Spurs, who Phoenix would sweep, as Hill would have back-to-back 18-point performances in games 2 and 3. Unfortunately, their season would come to an end versus the defending champion Lakers in the conference finals.
So everybody who doesn't understand why I always say I used to hate Kobe, it's not that I hated him, but we were rivals in the West back then. And Kobe got to win multiple rings in the early 2000s, or just in the 2000s in general. He got 5 of them. We got none of them. And a couple of those seasons, we had the best record in the league. We just didn't get it done. So it's one of those hatred out of jealousy, because, I was sick and tired of seeing Kobe Bryant win. But that's just the way it goes. Once the whole Suns team blew up, I was no longer, a Kobe hater or whatever. I never really was a Kobe hater, but I was no longer rooting against him, because we didn't matter anymore. The Suns fell off the map for a while.
Hill would have his moments, but he would also struggle, as he had 3 games shooting below 29%, but would have his best performance in a Game 2 loss with 23 points. But with the series tied at 2-2, Phoenix would drop the next 2 to end their season. But Hill's regular season saw him average about 11.5 points.
81 games. Had a boy. 11-5-2 and almost 1 steal a game. This is impressive. His shooting percentage got so good in Phoenix. Even his free throws went up. He was always in a 70-something percentile. Now he's shooting 48 from 2 and 44%. That's solid.
5.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. The era of great Suns basketball was over going into 2011, as Stoudemire had left for New York. Nash was still there, but he was also 36, and the rest of the supporting cast just wasn't what it used to be. But for the third straight season, Hill would appear in at least 80 games, and would hit double figures in 56 of them, including 2 with at least
Insane.
30.
Yeah. Hey, he really found the fountain of youth in Phoenix, just as far as health-wise.
Also recording 4 double-doubles. The Suns still possessed a top 5 scoring offense, but with a bottom 2 scoring defense, they were middle of the pack all year, finishing at 40 and 42 and missing the playoffs, as Hill averaged about 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. The 2011 lockout would lead to a 66-game regular season, but Hill would only manage 49 games. He was still averaging double figures, as he would have 27 games with at least 10 points, but in late March, it was announced he would need knee surgery, which may end his year. He would return in mid-April and appear in 3 more games over the remainder of the season, yet Phoenix would again miss the playoffs with a 33 and 33 record.
I told you guys, we fell off hard. We went from winning 60-something games to 50-something to 40-something, and then 33 and 33, and it was time to call it quits. It was game over here.
As Hill averaged about 10 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. Hill was again a free agent, and the soon-to-be 40-year-old would sign with the Clippers.
Son of a bitch. I don't remember him playing with the Clippers. There's probably a good reason why. Let's find out.
Going into the 2013 season. However, he would suffer a knee bruise during the preseason, which ended up being serious, as he wouldn't make his debut until January 12th.
Wow.
He would appear in 29 games over the remainder of the season, but would do so in a limited bench role, as at 40 years old in year 19, it would be the first time he came off the bench. The Clippers would go 56 and 26 and get a first-round matchup with Memphis, but they would lose in 6, as Hill only appeared in their Game 6 loss, and his regular season saw him average about 3 points, 1.5
That's why I don't
rebounds,
remember him in a Clippers uniform.
and 1 assist per game. And a couple months later, he would make one final announcement.
Yeah, 19 years in the NBA. Grant Hill, it's great to see you.
Glad to be here, and I'm glad to say that I'm done. I'm officially retired, moving on from playing.
Grant Hill was the definition of a generational
Dude,
player.
what a struggle. I mean, his story is so amazing to me because what a struggle his entire career was. Constantly bad. I don't know how many of you guys really play basketball out there who are listening to this and watching this, but you know when you have a major injury, how much work it takes to get back into shape, to get that confidence back in you, especially the confidence part. And I don't mean like self-esteem confidence. I mean confidence in what your leg or your arm or whatever it is that you injured. This takes time. So he had to continuously, time after time after time, face that injury, recover, heal, be brave, and do it all over again until the end. So no wonder why by the time it was done, he was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm retiring. Man, I'm really glad he got to go 82 games. That's a big one. And then he went 81 and then 80 following that. So that 3-year stretch with the Suns, something to be very proud of.
The things he could do at his size were almost unheard of. His game had everything, and he dominated every one before the injuries. He could give you scoring, rebounding, passing, and defense, and he also never gave you a headache, as he was one of the most calm and level-headed superstars during his day.
100%. They say LeBron James before LeBron James, but I would have preferred Grant Hill any day. Because Grant Hill, his ego was just chill. And he had all the offensive stuff, better defender. And to tell you the truth, his offensive bag was just 10x of what a LeBron James has. I'm sure you saw all the ISO moves that he makes, the quick drives that he makes, the jump shot. Yeah. If he would have stayed healthy in his prime years, shoot, we'd all be talking about Grant Hill right now.
His popularity reached crazy heights, and he backed it up with his play. He was even trending towards the GOAT conversation in Detroit. But the injury at the end of his time there stole so many of his prime years, and led to an individual what if, as well as an Orlando Magic what if. But Grant Hill never got discouraged and continued to fight back, And although it wasn't the Grant Hill fans remembered, he got to experience some healthy years and a bit of a resurgence in Phoenix, which anyone who was a fan of him knew he deserved.
100%.
His peak was short and came crashing down
The
quickly.
dude was so humble over here too. He was just so thankful to be playing, and he was so happy all the time when he was playing. We loved him here in Phoenix. We loved him.
Which leads to him being overlooked, as his entire career averages don't look special. But his healthy Detroit years were some of the best basketball anyone has ever produced. And you can definitely say his biggest knock is lack of playoff success, but he was carrying those Detroit teams and would have likely had plenty of success had he stayed healthy in Orlando.
100%.
But regardless of the injuries, Grant Hill,
to be fair, the highlights just show highlights. So we're seeing these clips. If you're old enough to had watched him play in his prime in Detroit, you know what I'm talking about. This guy was the real deal. Like, the guy was just nonstop in attack mode on both ends of the court. Outside of like Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, who else have we seen like this?
peak was doing things no one had done before him, and very few have done since. But that's it for today's episode on Grant Hill. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. If you liked it, check out these two on a couple of his Detroit teammates.
Oh, Stackhouse with Jordan that one year. All right, guys, this was a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. It's Grant Hill, man. Grant Hill drinks Sprite. Those of you who know, you know, because Grant Hill was a lot of fun to watch. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video. If you made it this far, y'all are awesome. Leave a like on the video if you haven't. I'd appreciate it. And go check out Forgotten Player Profiles if you've never heard of him. His channel is growing fast, and rightfully so, because this is about the most informative basketball content I think I've found out there. Not the most entertaining per se, but as far as just straight up information, man, I learned so much about Grant Hill just in doing this video. So yeah, go check him out, show him some love. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and you want more content like this. And yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow in the next one. Peace out.